Welcome to the Stirring the Gumbo Pot podcast, the podcast about the history, the culture, and the accomplishments of Black people. This podcast aims to inspire, educate, empower, and celebrate the lives of Black folk. I am your host, the Cajun Peach, and thank you for tuning in. Now let's get this pot stirring. Welcome back to another episode of the Stirring the Gumbo Pot podcast. This episode is dedicated to women all over the world in honor of Women's History Month. I have a very special guest joining me today who I'm very excited about. Her entire life's work could be summed up as advocacy for change. The core idea of advocacy involves actively working to influence public opinion, policies, and practices to address social problems and inequalities. It's about empowering individuals and communities, especially those marginalized or disadvantaged, to have their voices heard and their rights protected. Its key components are promoting social justice, influencing policies, raising awareness, empowering communities, and protecting human rights. Today's guest has been advocating for change since grade school and hasn't stopped yet. She's a former educator, a practicing attorney, a community activist who advocates for change in the Black community right here in her hometown, New Orleans. Please help me welcome to the show Attorney Shawon Jackson Bernard.
Good morning. I am excited to be here to share. I'm not quite sure exactly how much I'll be sharing today. Sometimes I think when I introduce myself and talk about my work, I forget a few things, and I'm sure as we engage in conversation, I may add yet some more nuggets about, oh yeah, I did that too. But I am Shawon Bernard, and as I was introduced, you indicated that I was an educator and an activist along with an attorney. And that's probably the journey. So I first started as an educator, and I wasn't, my goal was not to set out to be an educator. I got my first degree in business thinking that I was going to do marketing and sales and advertising. And what I found when I was in college was that I was good at explaining things. So I began to tutor, and eventually I became a math teacher, and I was a high school math teacher, and then I went back to school because I love learning and making sure that I'm prepared to engage in whatever endeavor I'm engaging in. And got my certification to be a school administrator, so I served as a school administrator. And I'm from New Orleans, and I was here. Sometimes we do the time measurement in terms of before Katrina and after Katrina. So I was a school administrator before Katrina and after Katrina, and that was two different landscapes that I was dealing with, and that probably reactivated my activism that I've always been concerned about, and it wasn't fully revealed until the challenges with education that was happening in New Orleans. And then I went back and got my law license, and I practiced around the area of family law. And in particular, in today's landscape, I do domestic violence, where I help victims of domestic violence advocate in the areas of custody, divorces, and protective orders.
Okay, so you touched on three different aspects of life: education, the legal system, and working with families and family law, right? So let's start from the beginning, because I've known you all of your life. Um, I didn't want to throw it out there, but this is my sister, so I know her, and sometimes I don't know her because she does so much. I admire her because of all that she does, and I have to just think, like, she does so much. She outworked anybody. Like she's involved in so many things. So can we just go back a little bit and go back from the beginning from high school? Because I remember in high school you were your class president. You graduated from Clark Joseph S. Clark High School, where you were the class president and either the valedictorian or the salutatorian. What you know? Because you started making an impact when you were in high school. And I've always admired you because you and I are the complete opposite because, I was a little bad one and you were the one who was studious. You made mostly A's. You were excellent in math. And so naturally, you became an educator, right? And so, can you just tell me what led you to become an educator? What was it that drove you to say, okay, I'm I'm excelling in this area. I want to teach it, or was it something different? Like I have a passion to
Well,
teach kids, or I just know I need to be teaching.
well, I'll share, and I don't know if you were aware of this story, but the schooling when I was in elementary school, I don't know, we went to Phyllis Weekly, and I don't know if you remember the drill team with Mr. Oliver, and that it used to be an all boys drill team, and I challenged Mr. Oliver as a girl to be on a drill team. And they opened up the drill team that girls could be on the drill team. And I made that request,
What?
and they honored that request at
What?
Phyllis Weekly.
I never knew that.
And I know. And if you remember, then I was a part of the drill team because I advocated that girls could be a part of the drill team. So then I had to join the drill team. And I didn't want to join the drill team. I just wanted girls to have access to the drill team.
How about
But
that?
I joined for a year, and then the girls were allowed to be on the drill team.
Wow.
And so that was elementary school. And also then I go to high school. So when I went to high school, let me do junior high. So let me tell you what I advocated for in junior high. And I don't know if you remember Miss Mason, and they used to have the Y team. And they only had like one section of the Y team. So everybody could not become a member of the Y team. So, of course, I expressed an interest of well, y'all need to have another section. Like you need two sections of the Y team because there are a lot of young ladies who want to be a part of this effort. So then they opened another class for the Y team. And now I'll fast forward to high school. So in high school, um, we used to have a senior advisor, senior class advisor. And as you said, I was the class president. So I was my junior class president, I was the senior class president, and I was the school uh, council president. And we wanted my class, because I believe in listening to what my classmates wanted. And, I took it as an honest effort to uh, advocate and to voice what my classmates wanted. And we wanted a different um, senior advisor. So I went to school leadership, to the principal, and said, we want, you know, a person, a different teacher to be our advisor. And she had never been an advisor, but she was willing to be one. And that was Miss Harlow, and Miss Harlow said she would do it if Miss White would do it. So that was the first year that the senior advisor was allowed to be selected by the students themselves who wanted particular people that they wanted to work with. So that was some of my uh, activism action that I did when I was a young person. And it's only through reflective action that I realized, a reflection that I realized, okay, like I've been doing this. And it leads me to, some of the work that I do now, just advocating for people who may not have a voice, even though it may or may not directly impact me. I realize that it's important for for me to step up sometimes and just try and guide and get people to their goals. So even if it doesn't benefit you personally, or you think it doesn't mean that you can be a voice for people who need your skill set. So if my skill set is being able to talk to people in a certain way, because some people, they have the passion or they have the goal, but they may not be able to communicate it effectively to make sure that the people they need to engage with will be receptive of what they're saying. And I oftentimes are like, okay, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Let me say it this way, or making suggestions. And that's some of the work I do today, and I'll get into that. But that's my education part. Now, when you speak of me being the Val, I wasn't the Val or the Sal, but I was in the top 10. And I think I got a solid educational foundation from, the schools that I went to and the teachers who poured out to me. Now, the reason I became a teacher was that, or the instance that I reflect on becoming a teacher was I graduated from the University of New Orleans, and I had a marketing degree. And with that degree, I worked briefly in the private sector, and I realized I was not a person who necessarily fit into the role of, wearing suits and heels to work every day, and pretending or just doing work that wasn't rewarding to me. So eventually I found a job at the food stamp office, and working, I would do intake. So I was an expedited food stamp intake worker. And it's that unit was for people who didn't have any income, and they were supposed to get their food stamps within 5 days. So that's the unit I was on. And I ran into one of my classmates. And well, two things. I ran into one of my classmates, and she told me that she was taking the teacher exam. And actually, she's like, "Do you want to take it for me?" I'm like, "I don't want to take it for you. I'll take it for myself." So I took the exam, and I passed the intro teaching exam, and that's how I got my first qualifications to uh, become a certified teacher. But while I was at the food stamp office, what I realized with helping people get food that they needed through the food stamp was that my people, the people who were coming, poor working people or non-working people, they needed so much help. And it wasn't about just giving people food stamps to see them through, but it's like, how do you educate them so that they can truly uh, be the people that they're supposed to be. It's not, sometimes people need a hand up or a hand out, but sometimes people need education to understand and information to understand how to do better. And I thought through education that I could help uh, educate people that they would not end up in the food stamp lines, and that they could become self-sufficient and independent. So that's how I decided, and I love uh, teaching, people and sharing with how to do things. So I think I had the natural ability to do certain things when it comes to education, because education is so important, and it requires such a skill set to take a person who doesn't understand some concept, and you're trying to teach them, oh, how do you use your brain to process this thought pattern so that you can get this result. And that's my education aspect of how I decided that I was going to be an educator in the city of New Orleans.
Wow. So it's like what I got from this was you've always been an advocate. Always. I think you're naturally an advocate because you started out young advocating, right? And then you
Right.
used education as a way to advocate for people who through education to help people to better themselves. In that way you were advocating for them to do better in their lives, and so you became a teacher. And I think you excelled at that, and you became passionate about that because you started what subject did you start with? Math, because you've always excelled in math.
Correct. So I started in math. So I was a math teacher, and I dabbled in, at one point, I was taking out, somebody was on sabbatical. So I started as a math teacher. She came back, and I ended up teaching history for a semester. I've taught science. I've taught computer science. Now I went back to school to get my master's in computer informational systems, because the school system, my principal believed that if you can teach math, some of the principals believe if you can teach math, then you can teach science and you can teach computer science. Now, I did not like science, so I didn't go back to study on science. I just decided that if you're forcing me to teach a subject that I'm not comfortable with, what I'm going to do is to remove myself from that situation and go and do what I want to do. So I've also been a person that um, you can't necessarily tell me what to do. You can ask, and I can decide whether or not it's something that I'm comfortable in doing. And if not, I'll just move on to my next.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at a school and they wanted me to teach science. And I never want to do an injustice to anybody and to children in particular. So I'm not going to teach something that I'm not fully knowledgeable on, that I can't engage in depth conversation, so that when you think about something as a student and you ask your teacher a question and the teacher doesn't have the answer, then my thinking is you shouldn't be teaching that subject. Because you should have enough depth that if a child has an inquiry about something, you can go down that road. And I couldn't do that with science.
Right.
So I needed to remove myself, because at this school they wanted the math teacher to teach math and science. Well, I wasn't doing children justice for science. So I went to a place that allowed me to teach what I was truly knowledgeable in, and that I can engage in conversations with and encourage students about the field of mathematics. So, but I was also interested in computers and how they worked, and what things we could do with them. So I decided to study that aspect of what my ask was with educating students, because I thought it was important that they get the full knowledge about what can happen with computers and what they needed to know and what's coming up. So I went back and I got my a master's in computer informational systems. But as I studied that, I also connected it to education, because I did my final product, my final research project in HBCUs, when I looked at a study of the HBCUs across the nation, what was required in terms of teacher education and making sure teachers were qualified, and what those qualifications were around computer science and educating children.
Okay. Now, you spent how many years in the education? Because we gonna go over but right now we're pre Katrina. We're still pre Katrina because you put a timestamp before and after Katrina, and that's how, like you said, it's a placewalker in history in the city of New Orleans. How people, when they're explaining things or talking about things or referencing time, they'll go before Katrina, after Katrina, what you call it, AK, but BK, before Katrina, after Katrina, kind of thing. So we're still before Katrina, right? And you're still in the
Correct.
education system, and you're still in the classroom now. You transition to administration and principalship in the schools. I know that. And then we'll talk about your career after Hurricane Katrina and how you made the jump from an educator to a legal professional. So, just talk briefly about how you left the classroom and went to administration, still advocating for children. I'm sure this is going to be another. I'm advocating for children as an administrator because that's, like I said, it's who you are. So can we talk about your leap from the classroom to the administration office?
So I work my interests. The area of education that I felt comfortable about in terms of the school level was I liked high school. So as a school teacher, I've always worked at the high school level. So I worked as the data manager, because now I have a computer degree. So with the computer degree, I transitioned from being a full-time classroom teacher to a half-time classroom teacher and half-time data manager for the school. And in that role, I would create the school schedule. I would serve as the principal's administrative assistant, where I help with all of the facets of setting up the school and just supporting the principal in that role. And eventually, before Katrina, I transitioned to a principal, an assistant principal. So prior to Katrina, I had 2 years of administrative work that I began to do. And after Katrina, I was fully an administrator. So I worked in the school system prior to Katrina. I started in 1990. oh goodness, I want to say 1991. So from 1991 up until 2005, I was, and I guess 2003, I was a classroom teacher. And after that, I was a school administrator up until I got out of education in 2012 is when I graduated from law school.
Okay. Law school. Now, in this lifetime, in the average person's lifetime, right? We go through the many different stages of life, and we go from job to job. Or some people like you change careers to say, okay, I'm done with this part of my life. I can't do this anymore. I don't enjoy this work, so I'm gonna try and re ignite my career and do something different. In your case, you did something totally different that for me, I couldn't even fathom going back to college as an adult. Well, I did. I started my college career in as an adult, but I could pursue a higher degree in the same field. You did something for me, which is unthinkable, which is go from being an educator to a practicing attorney with a law degree. Now, that's a lot, and that's a big commitment and dedication to your career. What made you decide to say, I'm done with education? Now I'm going to pursue something totally different, which is become an attorney. At how old? And how old were you when you decided I'm going to go to law school and pursue a whole different like career in my life? Like that's like two different worlds. How'd that
Well,
happen?
all right. So let me connect it, but I don't know how old was. I don't keep up with age. As long as I can do it, I just set the goal and I do it. But I will tell you that I enjoyed working on a high school level, but now I'm in the school system. I'm a principal at an elementary school. And the school system in New Orleans after Katrina was transitioning from direct run schools where the school board would run and manage all the schools to now a charter school system where each school was independent. And the transition program that was happening in the city of New Orleans, um, you would leadership or administrators will be placed at a school and they would be encouraged perhaps to try and create their own charter or write a charter. And I wasn't interested in writing a charter. I didn't like the framework that I saw and how it would work and whether or not it would best serve the community and who the charter management organizations were and whether or not they understood the population in the community of which they were working in or coming to work in. And I was concerned with that. So I'm at the elementary school and I get reassigned to the high school. And I wanted to go back to high school. So I was fine with being reassigned to the high school because I had a contract and I knew, and people were losing their jobs. But my contract got renewed, and we would be on these 3-year contracts. So I understood law such that if I have a contract, you have to pay me, and the pay was it was a good pay. Wages had gone up, and as long as you were paying me, then I would do whatever job I think I would do whatever job you asked me to do, but some of it I wouldn't do because I wouldn't go along with helping to create a school that I didn't believe needed to be created. And I didn't think the law allowed you to do it. Well, when I got moved from that elementary school to the high school, and I was trying to see how the elementary school I just left became a chartered school, because according to the law, as the principal, I needed to do A, B, and C. And I didn't do A, B, and C, which is why they moved me because I wasn't cooperating with what the plan was. I needed to survey teachers, survey the community, and and do one more thing, and I just didn't do that. So they removed me from that school so that it could get done and they could charter that school. But the school got chartered anyway without that being done, and I realized that the legislators had created a whole new branch or expanded charter school law, that what I thought was required under traditional law was no longer required. And I'm in the school system and I missed it. So I knew that I needed to become knowledgeable about the laws that were being changed. And I thought also that I could get somebody to help bring a lawsuit to stop what I saw happening. And nobody works for free. So there was not any attorney that I could find that would take on the challenge of uh, creating a lawsuit, filing a lawsuit to stop the movement. So I went to law school and decided that I would learn about the laws and make sure that I understood what was happening. So that was my intent when I went to law school, that I needed to know about the charter school laws because I was in it and I missed it. And I equate that to some of the stuff that's happening in a political realm that we deal with now, because we'll get to later in this conversation about an organization that I helped to create. But we exist in these communities where we're not fully aware of what laws govern how we should, or what we're constrained to operating in. And then also, how do we begin to challenge those things that we think need to be challenged? I often say that, at one time, not necessarily that we have to comply with the law, but we have to know how to change it. Because at one time, slavery was legal. One time, segregation was legal, but those things were changed. So if you see something that you believe that is injustice, then it's up to you, that I take it, personally, it's up to me to figure out, if I don't like something and I don't think it's fair and right, and it's in the legal realm, how do I begin to advocate for that? And how can I support and bring light to it, that it's an injustice that light needs to be shed on so that it could be changed? Because time changes things through people's actions. Um, so that's how I got into law. I don't know if I answered your question or not. Maybe you can let me know, because sometimes I talk a lot because that's what lawyers do. They tell me, and teachers too. So I'll stop for a moment
Yeah.
so we can regroup.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you did. I think it was your I think you were being challenged, and I think maybe you were responding to, like, I can't believe I didn't know this. I can't believe I missed it. And so I'm going to get I'm since I can't find somebody to advocate for me, I'm going to do the work, and I'm going to start advocating from a legal perspective. Like I said, you're a natural born advocate. And so I think that's what kind of led you. And I knew it was, this is all connected for you. And sometimes we don't see the pieces. We don't see how our lives, the consistency in things that we do, play out throughout our lives, right? Like, you've always been an advocate. You even said that from elementary school. So it's like advocacy has been guiding you throughout your career, in many aspects throughout your life, both maybe personal and professional. So now you got through law school. You went to Southern University in Baton Rouge, and you got your law degree. You passed the bar, and now you're an attorney now, and you're a family attorney, and you're our family attorney. So I'm glad I never needed you, because I never needed an attorney for any legal thing, but except for advice from you. And so now that you're in, you know, your career, you've been in your career now, I think, for at least 10 years now. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay.
10 years.
Oh wow. So that,
Well,
that's
yeah.
something to be
Mhm.
celebrated, that now you're an attorney, and you also have run for some seats on some boards, and I don't think you ever ran for office for anything, but I
Uh,
do think you would make a great mayor for the city of New Orleans. I've always said that. But I'm sure you're not trying to put your hat in you're not trying to tap into that. But can you just tell us where you are now with your law career, and then we'll get back to some of those things you wanted to talk about, because you are the president of the Lower Ninth Ward Voter Coalition. So that's outside of your law, but I'm sure the having that legal background brought you into the community organizations and things like that. So we can move on to those parts of where you are now in your advocacy.
Okay, so let's just well, I did run for a couple of seats. I was not elected, but again, it's not about sometimes it's not about winning, but it's about doing I'm spiritually guided. So I pray a lot and I try to be obedient to what the Spirit says to do, which is why it's all connected. And I also believe that God gives you everything you need. So I did one thing because I needed it to get to stage two, whatever that is, which is why I can walk away and say, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to be doing because it's all connected. So let's connect now to the political aspect work that I do with the advocacy. Because again, you have to have the knowledge and understand where power is in order to influence change. So I ran for, and I'm trying to make the connection to school, right? Because education is what I do. So I ran for the school board seat. And when I ran, and I ran twice, I also ran for Betsy, the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. But when I ran for the school board seat first, I was, everybody finished at 30 something percent. And people then begin to realize, wait, who is this lady? And how did she get 30 something percent of the vote? When she has no money, she has no organization, group around her. She just ran for office and got 30 something percent of the vote. And remember, I always worked in a high school. So those high school children are now voting adults and they know me. So if I was strategic about it and had money, I probably could have run a better race. But I always think that, winning was not what I was supposed to do because in not getting that seat, it helped me to uh, create an organization called the Lower Ninth Ward Voters Coalition. And for the last 8 years, that's been the official organization that I've worked with. But prior to that, I would go to the legislators that which we would, when I say we, I work with my mentor principal. And I also had a mentor attorney when we were trying to advocate and change some laws. So I began to engage in the political realm of legislative advocacy. So I've been engaged in that process for over 10 years. I did that work when I was in law school, when I realized that when I transitioned from that um, elementary school to the high school, I began to take time out and go and advocate at the state level for trying to stop some of the work that was happening in terms of creating these laws and taking uh, schools away from the city of New Orleans. So I've been engaged in that even prior to creating the Lower Ninth Ward Voters Coalition as a nonprofit organization for the state of Louisiana. We don't, it's not a 501c3, and it's just about, so with that group, what I do mainly, my interest is making sure that high school students are afforded the opportunity to register to vote and to encourage the schools to take those students and allow those students to vote for their first election before they graduate their senior year. So we also hold in that organization, we hold forums for the public. And we also hold student forums where we have and invite the candidates who are running for office to go before the community and to share with the community why they should be elected, because it's all connected in terms of educating people about why a vote is important, who these people are in terms of wanting your vote, and how they're connected to things you want to change and advocate for. Like when you talk about the streets and the potholes, like what's the right office? What elected official deals with that? What elected official deals with the school situation? Because elected officials are they have duties that they have to, or responsibilities. Everybody doesn't do everything, and sometimes with educating, people come to me and they are they're saying nobody's helping them, and they're in the wrong place to get the help, because the people they think can help them are not the people who are assigned to that responsibility. So even if you think your House of Representative person for the state can get the car parked, that's illegally parked in front of your house, like, it's not connected. And it's so much education that we need to do for the community and with the community about where those responsibilities lie. So that's part of what my organization does with the Lower Ninth Ward Voters Coalition. I work with and partner with some national organizations because we don't have funding. We don't go out and raise money, but we do connect with organizations like the NAACP, who will provide training to us. They provide free brochures or literature that we can share with the public. I also work with the Power Coalition. That's a local state group in the state of Louisiana, where they will provide resources for phone banking. And probably our major partner with the Lower Ninth Ward Voters Coalition now is Black Voters Matters. It's a national organization. There's a local, a state chapter, and also a local chapter in the city of New Orleans. I work with them and advocating for voting rights and making sure that the public understand what's on the ballot. So that's part of the political aspect, legal aspect of some of the organizing that I do and the partners that I work with. But I also work with and I help to arrange, when I talk about going into the schools to make sure that students are afforded the opportunity to register, I help to coordinate that for uh, the Orleans Parish School Board. So I organize and make sure that each school has an organization that they're partnered with, that they provide volunteers at certain times of the year to go in and to conduct these voter registration efforts, and also to help uh, organize funding that we provide free buses to the schools to make sure that if the schools want to take students to vote, if that's part of what they're going to do as their outreach, that they're not hindered by the cost of that transportation, but to work with organizations to also provide and cover that cost.
Y'all heard it all. She's multifaceted and she does a lot. And she's community based and grassroots. And that's what I think I admire about you so much. It's a lot I admire about you. I think I've told you that before, that you're one of the people I admire most. I don't look to celebrity no more. I don't look as, these celebrities as role models, because we're all human, but it's the personal connection that I have with you. Not only that, the work that you do. It's like you set an example for so many people, and you inspire people. I don't know if you know that or not, even just doing your work and keeping your head forward and staying focused. That that work ethic is what I think we inherited that from, like, our grandparents. But um you I think people in the community, young people especially, can learn a lot from just by watching you and understanding the kind of work that you do and that drive that you have. It's so admirable. So I just wanted to tell you that. Now, we talked about your education career. We talked about your legal career. We talked about your community activism. Because, and it's so much. How do you how do you balance all of this, and where do you find the time? Because when I wake up every day, I'm just like just dragging. I'm like, I gotta go to work. I can't, I don't have time to do this and that. Even though I want to do more, this year I'm going to join an organization this year, and I don't know if it's going to be a national organization, a local organization, or some kind of organization, but I'm going to join. But tell me how you, as a Black woman, because this is Women's History Month, right? And so we're honoring you, but at the same time, we know that you do a lot of work. So how you find the time to balance your personal life from just keeping it all together? You don't have to talk about your personal life, but how do you manage to do so much?
Uh, I, well, your mom worked two jobs, and she got up in the morning, and she came home for an evening break. Sometimes, when you say break between two jobs, to make sure a meal was cooked before she went to her second job, and then we saw, at nighttime. And your grandfather, who was a farmer, was, in the fields early in the morning. And again, he comes to the house for lunch and he goes back to the field. So I just think, and you talked about, we just inheriting that work ethic. So once I'm a late riser now. I used to get up a little bit earlier, but I don't have to anymore. So I start a little later, and when I say later, probably 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I probably go all day. Once I'm good, I'm good. But I just do it. You don't need too much sleep. So somewhere around 6 hours is enough to be re-energized and to do it again. And everybody's different, but my body's fine with about 6 hours of rest. And I just get up and set goals and work on whatever that task is for the day. I do have to write things down in terms of making sure I touch what I need to touch so that I can just keep you know moving.
Yeah.
So that's how I organize my calendar. I'm still old school. I like to write things down. I carry the paper calendar, even though I still, my job forces me to put it on the Google Calendar so I can share with my unit. I love the work that I do, so it's not a task for me to go in and do my job, because every day I get to advocate for victims of domestic violence and trying to help them create or realize what their next steps are so that they could move forward and begin to enjoy life, as opposed to being stuck in a place of being a victim, and trying to just encourage those people. I have clients who are both men and women. So, uh, but because I'm connected to the children's aspect, I also have a podcast, and I'm going to do a little plug right here. It's called Co-Parent Court. And with that podcast, I seek to try and help parents, not in a legal aspect. It's not I can't give you legal advice on the air or when you're not my client. But what I could share is how to navigate um, through conflicts, through impasses, and to suggest some things that you could do as a parent when your goal is to co parent and make sure that both parents are in the children's lives. Now, as a victim of domestic violence, when people come to me, that's not always good, because we never want our clients who are victims to engage with the abuser. So we have to figure out what boundaries need to be set. So when I give this advice on co-parent court, it's not necessarily advice that victims of domestic violence would engage in, because you want to make sure that those people are not going to come under the power and control again of their abusers. But for the general landscape of parenting and co-parenting, and there are so many relationships where the parties are no longer together. But we still need to make sure, I believe it's in the best interest of children, that they have time with both their moms and their dad. And if I can help navigate somebody through that and give them a different perspective of how they can look at their situation so that the child's life is better, and that they can get out their feelings. I'm like, the court don't care how you feel. It's not about your feelings. It's about what's best for your child. And it takes people a while, parents sometimes, they're challenged with that aspect of how do they remove themselves and start to think about and center their children so that the children can get mom and dad as much as possible engaged in their lives. Because I think, people will be better. It wouldn't have as much trauma um, as we grow older.
Yeah. Um, Thanks for plugging your podcast because I was going to bring that up. And how about two sisters doing their podcasting. I love that. But tell my audience again the name of your podcast and where they can find your podcast.
So the name of my podcast is Co-Parent Court, and the judge name is Judge Rochelle Jackson. And I'll just tell you that my full legal name is Shawon Rochelle Jackson Bernard. So I use my middle and my maiden name as Judge Rowe. And Judge Rowe, you can catch her on any social media platform: Facebook, Instagram, um, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcast recordings from, you can look up Co-Parent Courts.
Co Parent Court. Is it hyphenated?
It depends, but it's not hyphenated on most settings. So it's just Co-Parent
Co Parent Court
Court.
with Judge
Yeah.
Rochelle. Catch her on
Judge.
all podcast streaming platforms. So I just wanted to say that. Let me see where we are in this. We could go on because you have so much that you do, and you advocate. The thing I got from this interview with you, and I knew this about you, but I didn't know it was like a constant. Like I didn't know it's your advocacy started when you were in. And I do remember, Mr. Oliver. I do remember you being in the drill squad, but I didn't know that you were the one who created change, who advocated for diversity at such a young age in elementary school. So my hat goes off to you for doing that. You made history at Phyllis Wheatley
Yeah,
Elementary
yeah.
School. So that's
And
just
you don't realize it, right? You're
no,
like,
I didn't
okay,
even.
yeah.
My memory didn't even go back that far. Well, I do go back to elementary thoughts sometime, but I didn't realize that you being on the drill team was you making a change. Like you just opening doors and you know why not have girls on the drill team? Come on, that's stupid. So yeah,
Right.
advocacy started young in your life, and you're still advocating today through all different means. Your community activism, your podcast, you're advocating. You're still advocating for children doing that, and you're spiritual. You're a member of Franklin Avenue Baptist Church in New Orleans East, right? And
Correct.
it's just so many different layers of you. And I appreciate you being on my podcast today. Now, I did you want to tell us something else about all of the things that you do, your community? I know we can say that there is an election coming up. You want to speak to that? Because we could go on and on about this administration and the dismantling of the the U.S. Department of Education. We could talk about a lot of things from from your career and how we can connect your work in the community to what's going on out here. But I'm not going to do it because that'll take a whole nother hour. But do you want to speak to and remind people about maybe what's on the ballot, how important it is to vote and voter registration and those things?
Well, today, and we don't know when people are going to listen to this podcast, but right now we're in March of 2025, and March 29th, there's an election across the state of Louisiana, and in particular in the city of New Orleans. Uh, the only thing that's on the ballot are four constitutional amendments where the governor has requested and the legislators have put forth four amendments. Um, and those amendments, none of them, I won't say some of them are good. So amendment number one and amendment number four speaks to creating, it speaks to addressing legal issues. In particular, it wants to provide an avenue to sanction out of state lawyers, even though we have a process for that. It wants to create specialty courts. And when you create specialty courts, that means who gets to create these specialty courts? What's their jurisdiction? What can they do? What's that responsibility? And then how do you assign people to run these specialty courts? Are you going to appoint them? Or are you going to do away with elections that elect judges from your city that you want to elect? Is that one way to dilute the power of the vote? So Why are we giving somebody power to create some specialty courts where we already have courts created? Why are we giving away our power to say we want you, governor, to appoint judges so that our judges that we elect in the city of New Orleans won't be accountable to us? So we need to be mindful that we don't give away some of the power that we have. So, my position is no to all four. uh, so that's number one. And number four, number two speaks to it's so many things. They just threw a bucket of stuff into number two that it was challenged. There was a legal challenge, and while the challenge was not successful in removing it from the ballot, it's like 100 pages of changes that's entwined with amendment number two. And with amendment number two, when you look at your ballot, there's only 100-word description. Like, it doesn't even address all of the things. So number two is a no to. And number three talks about giving the legislators power to create law for juveniles such that they can go back and rename what a crime is, or name what a crime is, without having to go through the process of identifying a crime before it happens. So, if they make the crime whatever, picking up, throwing trash on the ground, we're going to call that a felony. Then they could do that, and then juveniles could be prosecuted uh, as adults for crimes that they're going to later name. So we don't want to give a power away that a group of people that don't necessarily represent us or understand the plight that our young Black children are dealing with, that will create some activity or some instance that nobody deemed to be criminal, and they come back and say, oh yeah, that's a crime. Prosecute them, and prosecute them as an adult. So again, we don't want to give away that authority to people not knowing what the crime is going to be. And they said, oh, just give us the power, we'll tell you later what's criminal.
Right.
So that's why it's no for all four.
Right. Right.
And so that's for the state of Louisiana, all four of those amendments.
Okay. There's a state election, March 29th. I'm going to try to get this podcast out before then. We've talked for almost an hour, and this was supposed to be a segment, but I think this one deserves, like, you deserve your own podcast for me. I'm not going to bring anybody else in, but this is a really great conversation. Thank you for being my guest today, for allowing me to honor who you are, the work that you do, and for consistently advocating for children, for families, and for voting rights. So we appreciate you. We honor you. We appreciate you. Thank you for inspiring us, and thank you. If there's anything else you want to say, go ahead.
I will say this, because I would be remiss if I would say this. The reason that I'm able to do all of the things that I can do is because I have a very supportive husband
Oh.
who who has supported me through all of these endeavors, and making sure that whatever I wanted to do and whatever was ever lacking, especially with raising children, right? So I did this. I have two children, and a husband, and I met my husband in high school. So he has been this entire journey with me. So I just want to make sure that you uh, your listeners understand, the support that you need, and also a very supportive family, in doing all of this that I do, extended and cousins and sisters and brothers, and coming, to work on campaigns and giving their times, and all of that helps, in terms of people uh, supporting the work that I've done. So it doesn't go unrecognized and unappreciated. So I just want to say that has helped me, to travel the journey.
Yeah, yeah, we do rely heavily on the people around us, because support, family support, community support, you can't do a lot by yourself. And so, thank you for acknowledging your husband, especially my forever brother-in-law. They did meet in high school. I think it's their first love, but anyway, uh,
Yeah.
shout out to my brother-in-law, and thank you so much again, for joining me today on this podcast for Women's History, honoring women. That's what I like to call it. In the month of March and every day, because everything about this podcast is honoring Black people, but we're focusing on women this month. And so you're an outstanding woman, and I'm grateful for everything you've done for me in my life and for my kids, and for how you inspire us and how you help. You're always there, and we appreciate you, and we love you. And so thank you. Thank you for joining me, sister.
Well, thank you for having me. And now I have to I have some placards I have to drop off to my classmates. A whole nother segment, but
Yeah, that's a
until
whole.
next time.
She
Yeah.
keeps going, you guys. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us on this podcast today. Thank you, sister.
All right. Y'all have
Wow. So on top of all that, after we recorded, and I talked to her a little bit longer, and I told her that I had to find a poem for my episode, because typically I incorporate, or I read. I'm sorry, I recite a poem by a Black poet writer on my show. And she said, "Oh, I wrote a poem. You remember I wrote a poem?" So she reminded me that she wrote a poem, and she read it to me. And it's a beautiful poem. And I asked her to record it on a separate track and send it to me so I could mix it with some music and all of that. And she did that. And here she is. So it's poetry time.
The Seeds of a Freedom Fighter by Shawon Jackson Bernard. Brought from land in shackles and chains, denied of rights and inflicted with pains, stripped, beaten, and sold for the white man's gains. Self-preservation was embedded and ingrained. The seeds of courage stood up in the fights, as reflective through the difficult plights. Enslaved for nearly 400 years, because our pigments were richer than theirs. Deemed to be less, but the seeds were too great to settle for a life inflicted with hate. Never defeated by another's belief, the seeds became rooted through years of grief. The struggles, the missions, the journeys took years. The seeds were determined and fought through their fears. From emancipation through segregation to the realization of an unfair nation, the denial of destiny was challenged, but not blocked. And the pursuit of freedom could never be stopped. There were killings and massacres that affected us all. There were marches and protests with victories too small. The blood in the soil was rich for the bloom. The heirs of our ancestors were ready to assume. There was Malcolm and Martin and Obama and John. There was Du Bois and Ida and Rosa and Shawon. There was Moses and Dennis and Dodie and Jerome. The fighters were many, and many names are unknown. But the results of their efforts are equal to none. And the work that you do could also make you one. The right to vote and the right to speak, the right to protest and march through the streets, to protect environmental climate change, for racial justice, and to say their names. Criminal justice and education platform, healthcare, economic empowerment, and voting reform. While the fight for justice continues today, our goal for equality must be the way. We continue to stand. We continue the fights. We invite you to join us in our quest for social justice and civil rights.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stirring the Gumbo Pot podcast. I really appreciate you all listening in and for being a supporter of the show. So in the spirit of Don Cornelius, I wish you all love,